Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Just Talkin podcast. If you could give us a like and subscribe on YouTube.
And a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be great. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to email justtalkingquestions@gmail.com. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Just talking, that's the same with no platform. Pressure by societal norms. Just talking, so grab a drink and cheers to you for listening the whole way through life. You promised it. Just talking, just talking, just talking, just talking.
All right.
Wow.
Hey,
Hey,
cheers,
we're rolling.
everybody. What a dream. Guys, today is going to be a great episode.
It really is.
Because we have a very good friend of ours, Mariah.
Yeah, I don't know if you realize there's somebody
Here.
seated.
Somebody seated here. And we've been friends with Mariah for what, 9 years now? 9.
Has it been 9? How long ago?
Yeah,
did we-
yeah. 9.
Almost 10.
We met in 2011. Mariah went to TCU with us.
Frog camp.
Yes.
Memories.
Yeah.
We were in the same dorm. Very quickly did we realize that Mariah would be a part of our life until the end of our days.
Yeah.
We needed her.
Not
in
only
numerous ways.
Not only is she an incredible friend, but
Yes.
she is so freaking smart.
Yes.
And has worked her ass off in her field. And I mean, obviously, we love having you as a guest on the podcast, but it's also just nice to have a friend.
It is.
Yes. Especially in these hard times.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So we definitely want, because Kelly and I will fuck it up, trying to explain exactly what Mariah does and where she is at her point in her career. So Mariah, if you do want to take a moment and just kind of let people know what's going on, what you're doing, where you're headed.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Lots of things. So I'm getting my PhD in clinical psychology. I'm officially a doctoral candidate. So that means that I just have to defend my dissertation and do my internship.
That's so hot.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's great. And as like with all graduate training, you are unpaid labor for many years getting experience, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So at this point, I have been a clinician for, oh, Lord, 4 years, 5 years almost.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
that means that you are seeing patients, but you are not compensated for. Is that correct?
Now I am. So I got my master's 3 years ago, at which point then I was able to be compensated, provided someone wanted to hire me.
Right.
Because I don't have a license, and when shit hits the fan, if you don't have a license, someone has to take the heat.
Sure.
And that would be my supervisor. And so that's a lot of the reason why you don't get paid through training, is because you just don't have a license and you're a liability at times because you're learning.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine being a liability.
Can't imagine it?
I mean, no.
It's
no,
interesting
I mean,
because you are one.
I'm like, I'm a liability just running around. But I can't imagine being like a liability in terms of like a professional field like
well,
that.
you're
where
also doing something that's so personal that it's like, you know, these people, I mean, I don't mean to scare you, but you could ruin their lives.
No. I am aware of the power that I hold. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely terrifying. You know, being it was the first year I'm working in a community mental health setting, and there's a client that is significantly older than me because I went in straight after undergrad, so I'm like 23.
Yeah.
And telling this person who has seen so much more of the world than I have in terms of just life experience what to do. And
so,
I'm like,
yeah, it's a totally different. How do you make somebody like that comfortable with, you know, being counseled by someone your age?
I mean, the way I kind of approach it is you're getting a new perspective. You gotta
sell it. You gotta sell it, you know.
Yeah. I'm like, you've been trying this for your life. You're in here because something's not working.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe
new.
I got something.
I may have an idea.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I could be the thing that works. You don't know.
Also, you know, empathy. You could just be empathetic at any point.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
So the reason why we're having Mariah on today is because in one of our previous episodes we mentioned something about a
Pregnant
gentleman who was pregnant.
Yes.
Was that what we did?
Yes. So that was it.
Oh, no, I believe we did that.
So you did do that. However, it wasn't what it was like, oh, I should talk to them on the podcast. It was more of, I think you had said something like, we need to learn. Someone needs to tell us. Someone needs to educate us. And I, my dissertation is more so on like feminism and identification and attitudes and eating behaviors. But I specialize in LGBTQIA plus psychology and trying to be a competent clinician working with marginalized groups. And so I was like, I'd be willing to talk with you, being the dumbass that I am, thinking I wouldn't be talking to you on the podcast. We'd just be having champagne away from it. But hey,
Kelly and I
I'm
were like,
down.
no, we're gonna film it.
No, if you're going to take the time to say these important things so we can at least get it on tape. And that way, when we forget,
we can look back and say, no, Kelly and Allie, remember, Mariah told you. She told you.
She told you right here. This is the timestamp at 16 minutes and 43 seconds. She told you were idiots.
So what we're really looking for here is that Kelly and I are trying to learn because we...
Trying to learn is a hilarious phrase.
I'm not saying I'm
like,
going to walk away from this being a perfect angel, Kelly. I'm just saying that I'm going to put in my, 100%.
let me put it this way, Mariah. I'm going to try to hear you. But who knows?
we'll see. Yeah.
We will. So we're gonna talk a good amount today about just different things going on with I mean, gender is something that over the past and I might even be wrong in saying this, 20, 30 years has become more and more of a very
it's a hot conversation.
it's a hot conversation. It is.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that we've developed the language to talk about gender in ways that we historically haven't. Because, I mean, there's a long history of gender divergent experiences.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not as though, like, everybody who feels the way they do today did not exist prior. It's just now it's,
Aren't
it's
they
being talked about.
aren't they in, like, either Thailand or Taiwan? Aren't they, like, ahead of the game in terms of gender? Isn't there, like, I swear to God, there's a country. It's either Taiwan or Thailand where they've been doing gender differently for a while now.
So I know in India, I don't exactly remember the actual term or classification, but there is like not as spiritual or religious, but there is acknowledgement of another gender. That would be, and I keep in mind I'm a cisgender female woman person. Like I'm trying to have a conversation with you all because the way I see it, similar to what we should expect of any majority group, we need to have conversations as well. So that way the onus isn't on the marginalized groups to educate us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so I think at least in indigenous and native communities, they have a concept called two-spirit, in which an individual acknowledges both masculine and feminine. Sorry. He has very important thoughts on gender that he wants to share.
Where do we want to? Sorry,
But
everybody.
no, there's many countries that have a history of acknowledging multiple genders aside from the binary that we kind of exist in the United States, or historically have existed in.
Yeah, it's interesting how disconnected America is. America. When was the last time you called it America?
Well, I have a best friend named America, so.
That's true. That's true. But
Lovely
normally you
girl.
call it the
Great.
U.S.,
A lot.
the United States, but here in America.
Here in America.
Sound like a
She's
60-year-old
yeah.
newscaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here in America, we have, but we have in my humble opinion, barely a tie to spirituality. I mean, in terms of like
there's
all
not
that.
a lot of. We're so individualistic. There's just not a lot of unity at all, and a lot of unity comes from spiritual guidance, or At least, I mean, people don't. People in
They call us one nation under God, but have you seen these people?
Yeah. They're not doing so hot.
No, they're not. The only thing we're under is the damn sun, girl. It is getting hot.
Well, not in the Pacific Northwest. Like, let's be real. It's
Oh,
clouds.
that is
Yeah,
true.
very
That
low
is
cloudy
true.
here. And this is actually a really good place to be learning about all this stuff, because the Pacific Northwest is very progressive in terms of
Yes.
gender norms and sexuality and all that kind of stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
However, I'd be lying if I said some of it I was like not a little uncomfortable about. I mean, sometimes
Sure.
we go into stores. There's stores out here that have like pins and buttons and all this stuff that are like sexual buttons.
Yeah.
And
I'm
just
with you, but I don't. I like, for me personally, going into places. I mean, I don't need to see bumper stickers with dicks on them and vagina. It's just
see,
it's
that's
not
how
my
I
thing.
feel too. But is there something wrong with us? What do you think?
Because it's just a body.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no tea, no shade to Connecticut, but it's very Connecticut. I mean, it's a body.
Right.
Like,
I know.
What does it matter?
So, but why am I so uncomfortable by it?
because, well, there's a giant taboo about vulvas, about penises, about everything.
whole thing.
The whole thing, because they're like,
How do we break it within
Yeah,
ourselves?
what do we do? We gotta fuck everybody.
I
We
mean,
must have sex with everybody we know.
if you want to take that route, I support you. Be safe. Get tested.
I won't be safe. I'll do it with a gun.
No, that's protection. Honestly, like, being from the South, I had my own experience of trying to get, not used to, but okay with talking about sex, okay with, because my original dissertation topic was on social norms as predictors of sexual satisfaction. And I did that for like 3 years. And just interacting with it and listening to it and hearing people talk about it so candidly.
Right.
Like, because when you grow up referring to a penis as like a pee-pee, you're not really going to take anything seriously and not really going to want to actually talk about a penis.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing, right? Is that with Kelly and I mean, it wasn't even. There was no name for it. It was not even spoken about.
You have
and even
family
if it,
members that have them.
I know, but
It didn't matter.
It would
Didn't
even,
matter. Not to my knowledge.
They have. They did. The only thing that it was referred to as private parts. That was it.
That was it.
The entire time. Mariah.
Oh, he's got his privates out. His privates out. And you're like,
I mean,
what?
If
Well, literally. Bitch, what is going on?
which if you like grew up around the military, you're like,
Private out?
oh, you're a little confused. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
His private.
There's just large groups of people in uniform walking around. Like, what's happening?
The first time I heard the word penis out loud was when a group of 5th grade boys told me in the lunch line that their whole table was referring to me as penis. That was my nickname.
In front of my own parents.
That was the first time I heard it out loud. Said to me was that people were calling me it.
Those dudes rock.
And I literally, there was a teacher in the lunch line who looked at me and saw my face was like beet red. I was so embarrassed. She was like, "Allie, what's going on?" I was like, I can't say it. I cannot tell you. And she was like, "You have to tell me." And I was like, "They're calling me a name." And she was like, "What name?" And I was like, "Don't make me do this." And I, in this like 65-year-old woman's ear in the lunch line, I very quietly whispered, I was like, "Penis." And she was like, "Oh my gosh." And she grabbed me by my hand and she took me to the principal's office and I had to report what they were doing. Yeah.
This is the penis girl right here. This is what they all call penis.
I just wanted to know what about me. If I had 5 minutes, I just wanted 5 minutes with them to understand what it was about my head or my shape or something.
You wanted to do a focus group?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what was going on.
I'm just baffled by the fact that the teacher pulled you into the principal's office to
Oh,
like
isn't
go
that
and
always how
report
it
it and not pull in the boys that were all at a table together that they're 12 at
They're
the
12.
oldest. Like, why can't you just like round them up? It's not like hurting cats and take
I
them
know.
to the principal's
Why
office.
do I have to
I
go?
don't know. I don't
I'm
know.
the one being harassed.
I don't know.
Ridiculous. I
Yeah.
know.
Well, Kim and John are lovely parents. They even now when I explaining something to them, I will say male genitalia. What?
Do you really?
I am 27.
Kelly,
gosh darn
no,
years
no,
old.
you gotta break that. I've broken it.
Why are you talking about penises and balls to your parents like a coroner? That is my concern.
Male genitalia.
Male
You use that phrase?
Genitalia.
Genitalia.
Like I'm a fucking scientist or something. Honestly, I don't know why. I feel so uncomfortable. I won't say boob, tit. I'll say tit.
I'll say tit. To
My mom. I will say the woman's chest. That is how.
You gotta break it, Kelly. This is why I'm not getting anywhere because you're double downing on these terms on the phone with them.
I don't know how to do it.
Like I'm a monster.
I don't know how to do it.
Do you want to talk to my mom first? She's great practice. Like just
Hey,
Hey.
can
Hi,
we just
Michelle.
talk about
Hi, Michelle.
titties for a little bit?
You need to,
It's just it's just hard. I don't know why. Because I think I don't know. It's whenever
I don't know.
I
really don't know.
They are I'm telling you, we did not have any type of sexual conversation.
Not once.
Ever.
It was never explained.
Did you have it?
It was an ongoing, which honestly is probably the best way to go about it because you should constantly, in my opinion, have age-appropriate conversations with your kids starting from like 3, 4. Obviously, you're not going to go into like graphic detail.
Of course.
But they have their bits. They should know what they're, what they're about. Because if, God forbid something happens, how are they going to communicate that? But I remember on the way to school, I think I was in 6th grade. I was in middle school. And Heather, my older sister's talking about something to my mom about a boy who like may have a crush on her or whatever. I wasn't paying attention. And my mom's like, says something about a Woody. And and my like sheltered Disney ass is like, why are they talking about Toy Story now? And so she calls to like the back of the car, like, do you know what that is? And that's when I
And
learned.
how old were you?
I was in 6th grade, so 12 maybe. No,
Oh, okay.
11. Yeah, around
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
Woody.
When did they
Yeah,
start?
that
did
was the word she chose to describe a boner.
Did you have sex education in Texas?
So, in Texas, it is not required by law to have sex education. If you do decide to teach sex education, it is a requirement to teach abstinence only in addition to whatever you decide to teach. I know this because at TCU, they wanted us, it was like one of our writing classes, and I chose the one about, it was like biology or like trying to like disseminate science to through writing. And they're like, there's a public health problem on college campuses. Which one are you going to address? What kind of program are you going to create? And we decided male condoms, but not as in like male bodied, as in like USPS. And so we wanted to campaign to, get TCU to provide condoms in your mailbox. So that way you didn't have to go down to the health center and grab them out of the little like fishbowl or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
As a way to help decrease the number of STIs on a campus.
That's pretty smart.
That is smart.
It was for a class. Nothing ever happened because, TCU.
Right.
And that's where I learned that, that's the law in Texas where you don't have to. So my sex education was taught by a football coach. Loved him.
Classic.
Great. Yeah. Hung out with,
Sorry.
yeah.
Your sex education was taught by a guy?
Yeah. So okay.
That's
so
crazy.
is
Really?
ours.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
See, at my school they did was hippy dippy California laws probably, but it was a guy. No, actually, mine. Am I wrong?
Mine was a woman.
So actually, mine was a woman also.
Yeah.
The woman came around and taught everybody, but she was like a specialized person that would like go Miss Moustakis, and the way she drank her water bottle was not appropriate, and that's something that every kid from every school talks about is that Miss Moustakis goes ham on the water bottle.
What do you mean? What kind of water bottle did she have? And what was
Just
It wasn't like a penis
really
shit. No, she
enjoying
she
it.
really
Yeah.
got down on that thing.
Jesus.
People were like, she was like really.
Miss Moustakis?
People
What?
say that stuff.
Okay.
But then there was
Ooh.
also another guy who would teach us. There was a separate thing we took where they would teach us about like STDs specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And this
Yeah.
like, big fat guy would be coming to school and be like, "You do not want AIDS, man." And he had like, I swear to God,
Yeah.
he had like a thick like list, like AIDS, fucked up stuff.
So basically Mean Girls. Which I mean that's fair. So you have your like reproductive education as your like I think I got mine in 4th grade where they split up across sex, and I'm doing that because sex is going based off of like the biology in terms of
Yes.
primary sex characteristics and whatnot.
Right.
And it was like, okay, when you go through puberty, this is what it's gonna be like. But it was basically a video. And they were like, here's a little goodie bag that had like a little booklet and a pad, and that was it. And I'm like 11 at the oldest at this point because it's 4th grade, and I'm like, well, nothing's happened, so I don't know what to do with this shit.
Yeah.
And then in 6th grade we had, I think it was health, and it was also like a one-time thing taught by either some like traveling it's like almost a traveling circus at this point, where like they have the big projector and they're like, you don't want STDs, this is what like gonorrhea looks like, and you're like 13-year-old and just having a bunch of hormones, and you're like, no, I don't want that, but what do I do about this? It's like going on inside me.
Yeah.
And then in high school is when I had the one. It was just general health class. Sex was just one chapter. And he didn't even really have a lecture. He was just like, okay, write down the terms and their definition, and that will be on your test in a couple of weeks. And that was it. And then public school in El Paso, I guess, was really trying to like amp things up and be woke in some way. And they're like, we're going to try advanced health, which was what sex education should have been, even though it wasn't great, because I remember doing a macaroni diagram of
God.
of like a penis, and like the internal, like there was definitely like yarn that was like the vas deferens, and
You had to make a dick out of macaroni?
yeah, like the like the anatomical. So like you cut a person in half and you get to see all the bits on the inside of like how it goes from the testes through. And
Somebody asked me a few weeks ago to like if I could do a diagram of like a vagina, like the whole thing.
No.
Could I do? I was like, no.
you
no clue.
have one.
I know, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no.
So off the podcast, we will do it.
Dude, I could draw one, no problem, dogs. Okay. This is actually a real question I do have. Do you? Because I think it's silly, from a sex education standpoint, to have to draw out like the penis and be like the balls connect to here and they shoot up the stuff. Where do you think it's more important, especially for like young boys, to be like, don't do this with it, but it's okay to do that with it?
I mean,
Do you want to explain a
trial
little
and
bit more?
errors did you have
where,
with it?
I mean,
No,
is
I
there
just
is there
don't
a
see the
list
point
in
you're
your
drawing.
head that you feel like should be said to young boy? Here's what you can do. Here's what you should not do.
also, do you think you know everything that they shouldn't do with their dicks? Like, have you tried literally everything you could possibly do?
Well, like physically or metaphorically, do you know what I'm saying? Where it's like physically, don't stick it up the vacuum. Don't stick it most places.
Yeah.
There's a very small amount of places that you should be sticking it.
One time I dated a dude who took a loaf of bread and scooped out the middle of it and put it on his dick as a joke, a comedic joke.
To show and then showed it to you.
Yes, because he thought it was funny. He was like,
is
"Look,
this?
there's
Is
bread
it-
on my dick." And then 2 days later, he had a
Neil?
yeast infection.
Is this Neil?
He, of course. I was like, did he get a yeast infection?
I-
Jesus Christ.
That's a real yeast
It
infection.
was
Okay.
one of the funniest things. I when he called me and he was like, I went to the doctor. I lost my fucking mind. I thought it was so funny.
I think that you what you really need in the health class is somebody saying what actual sex is. Because you know the dick goes in the vagina, but you're like, but how?
Well, I mean,
What do you mean?
well, also there is, I can't remember which religion, so I'm not gonna, and also probably best to not call them out. I don't want everyone after me.
Sure.
Where,
We have a
like, one
big
of the,
population of Hindu listeners.
where like,
You wouldn't believe it.
well, I'm pretty sure it's not them. Where the like loophole is, you can't have sex, but you can stick your penis in her vagina and just not move because it's the movement.
Soaking.
Ah.
Soaking is what they call it.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah, that's- It's like the people that are like, I'm still a virgin because I've only done anal.
Yeah, the anal thing is very confusing.
Yeah.
As a religion, it's pretty straightforward. Otherwise,
I thought you, as a religion, is that what
well,
you
no, not as a religion. As
Oh
a,
my
a
God,
thing.
could you
Yeah.
imagine?
This probably is in San Francisco.
I'm
Some
analist.
Doing
liberals in San Francisco worshiping angels.
doing anal for that is 0 to 60, my friends. That is way too.
Who goes? Oh, I'm not gonna have sex. I'm just gonna try anal. That is
A
brutal.
lot of people.
I know they
Yeah.
do.
Religious chicks. Your nail just broke over
You
this
had a
anal
lot
talk.
of
Oh my
feelings
I
God.
have
about
a lot
that.
of feeling.
But I know there's some horror stories of people who have done the anal.
Well, a lot of
thing
people
and
do
then it got
because they're
stuck.
like, they
Got stuck.
they want to remain a
Yes.
virgin for religious reasons.
Yes, in our
This is
brother's grade,
this is out of control.
this couple that was
It's actual people that we know.
this couple, they were both
Yeah, out of
Greek,
control.
which really has nothing to do with it, but
But
I
you know
thought-
what? Sometimes it's fun when you
Some-
get two.
they were both like really Greek though, like had one of those in there. It was like Asiophasis, that kind of stuff.
Guadastopoulos or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever
I
the
mean,
fuck.
they had Greek last names. I mean, it was like whoa. But
Those last names with like 3 Ks and 4 Ys in them. You're like, Jesus.
yeah. But that ends up being the least interesting thing about them when you find out that they actually had to go to the hospital because the guy got his dick stuck in the girl's ass. They had to go to the hospital to get it surgically removed.
You're lying.
She's not lying.
They had to go to the
So-
hospital like
Yes.
like two
Have you-
dogs or cats because that happens to animals a lot.
Yeah.
Have you seen
not calling
Sex
Greek
Sent Me to
people
the
I was
ER?
gonna say, excuse you.
What did you say?
There's a show on TLC called Sex Sent Me to the
But
ER.
that's all like broken boners and such.
Not necessarily.
Oh dear.
Broken boner sounds like
Well, it's
What's
a
a
muscle.
Broken boner.
it sounds like a Green Day song.
It's a muscle group, right? And so what you do because of the intense blood flow and whatnot, it breaks because of it can break any freaking way. It's almost like a really severe sprain. I think is at least how I conceptualize it. I don't have a penis, so I can't speak to this.
Why am I visualizing it as like one of those snap bracelets where it's like a straight line and then you hit it too hard and it curls under?
No. Oh yeah, it's a fracture. It's yep.
A
There you
penile
go.
fracture.
Yep. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happened to Dennis Rodman.
Oh, that's right.
That's
it
really
did.
funny to happen to a guy with the last name Rod.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
so what is it? How do you look at your dick and go, I have a penile fracture?
I bet
you feel it.
I would know, and it's
You would-
terrifying. I would definitely know. If
No,
my
I'm not
snapped my
saying.
peener.
Oh, you would know. I mean, like you would. You
Oh,
would.
you would know.
So I mean, have you pulled your groin?
I don't know where my groin is located on my body.
All right, this is where it starts.
Your earlier question
know
of
where
if there's worth
The
drawing.
groin?
Yes.
Where's your
like,
groin?
It's like right there. It's where
Is
the
that where it is?
So okay, so you have
Tell her
like your
she's wrong for me.
abductors.
Let me just.
No, it's in the general area. So
Okay.
thank you, Bruce, for pulling it up. So yeah, it's between your stomach and your thigh, and it kind of goes across here.
Oh yes, I have
Yeah.
pulled my groin before.
Yeah, so groin pain really is not fun.
Yeah, it hurts.
And so, like, you feel it as you walk, too, if you pull it really badly. So I'm assuming that that type of fracture for a
to be
penis
honest,
would
actually,
be bad.
you know, now looking at it, I don't think I have pulled it before.
I've pulled it.
Is it
hurts.
crazy for me to say I haven't pulled it before?
No.
Oh, okay. A lot of people haven't. Okay. Am I
mean,
am I okay?
I mean, you're kind of like
You're
a quirky
fine.
girl, but
I'm just quirky like that. I've never pulled my groin.
I do have this question in terms.
I'm like, you have a lot, so you want
we have a lot of questions.
I do.
We've gotten to none of it.
No. We did.
Oh,
we
okay,
did.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But one of the tying back to the health thing, and just like growing up and the idea of sex and everything. Do you think that the romanticization of the whole thing should be cut out of it?
Romanticism?
Yeah, romanticism. When you romanticize sex.
Yeah. Do you think that's just because in my head I'm like, why were we told that the first time should be this glorious thing?
Because then you won't do it because you're building it up in your head like, oh, it's supposed to be this perfect thing. And so when it's not perfect, you're like, oh, this is not the time.
See, the thing is that for some reason
Makes you feel-
I never thought it was gonna be the end all be all. So I was like, let's just fucking get this out of the way. I had a very dude mentality about it, but a lot of girls, a lot of women don't get that at all.
I feel like I wanted it to be. It was like I wanted it to be special, and then once I realized that it wasn't the first time, then I was like, it's never going to be special again. That was what was in my head, was that it was just like, okay, this sucked, so chances are it'll suck again at other parts of time. And
Which that's
we move-
unfortunate.
we move
like,
on.
like sex shouldn't suck.
Right,
Well,
it shouldn't.
I mean, you can suck during sex, but it shouldn't suck.
Hey, come it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is when you're socialized as a woman, because there is this like dichotomy of you're supposed to be a sexual creature but also a prude.
Yeah.
Because
right.
you got to keep that locked down. And so if you're thinking that it's special, you'll want to do it, but only at certain points. You'll still guard it.
Because we have to be desirable, but also pure.
God.
Yeah.
My least favorite thing is whenever a guy is like, I like her because she's innocent. I'm like, ugh.
Ugh, disgusting.
Like,
Truly.
That's a
why?
predator.
Yeah, that drives me nuts. Well, that's why I also find it weird when, okay, and I maybe you can help me with this because it really is something that bothers me. I cannot stand when women, I don't give a shit what you post of yourself and all this good jazz, but when people post saying that they are so horrified by pedophiles and then post themselves looking like babies online,
That is very
like
strange
sexualizing themselves as like a baby, like with a,
to me. It's very bizarre.
it's happening.
Are you saying like with like a
So
rattler or
let's-
like somebody who's like
somebody who will literally like post online being like, I hate creepy men, all this stuff, and then the pictures that they post of themselves are in lingerie, making themselves look like a baby, like
or a
making
teenager or a kid.
or like
type
the
of
little pigtails, like having. I've seen girls with
Yeah.
a fucking like
Pacifier?
diapery
Oh.
thing on and like a pacifier.
Oh, well, maybe this honestly
And
probably
I-
deserves a little bit of context. This
Stop
deserves
it.
a little bit of context for Mariah. Mariah, comedians are mentally ill.
Yes,
And-
many see me.
Yeah. And they, a lot of the times, when comedy isn't their strong suit, they end up diving into another realm. Which sometimes, look, I don't give a fuck if you're hot, you have an OnlyFans, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's your business, whatever. But if your whole thing starts turning into a well, exactly what you said.
Like their whole bit is like I look like a child. It's like
It's very bizarre.
I'm very confused. Like in your mind, would there be a fine line there of them? Like, do you think that is harmful or do you think it is helpful? Not helpful, but do you think it's
Innocuous.
yeah.
I think it's weird as hell. But
So I mean, the like, I'm trying to think, the like incongruency between like pedophiles are terrible and I'm gonna like dress up as a sexualized baby, That's their own thing. They can figure that out in their own therapy and whatnot. I can't speak to that.
That's not my job.
Yeah. I mean, it might be if they come and see me, but until they're my actual client, it's not my circus, not my monkeys. But sexualizing children, or at least very like childlike things, like a girl with a teddy bear wearing like pigtails, like that being a thing on porn, like that's not great. Like,
Yeah.
honestly,
It bothers me.
and if like, not to yuck anyone's yum, there's a fine line between having like a kink that you do with consenting adults that is, what you choose to do, that could then be harmful in terms of the way you perceive others that don't want to engage with it, that cannot consent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are those two different. Okay, that
Here's my thing. If I fucking follow you because you're a comedian, okay, I didn't sign up for you dressing like a baby, okay?
don't get mad at me when I don't want to see it.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
get mad at me when I unfollow you for doing that
I think
bullshit.
that's the weirdest part, when people get mad at you for being like, no offense, I don't want to see you naked.
Yeah.
I don't. This
And
is
there's some things I think it should be understandable, that it's like there's some things that just make other people uncomfortable that they don't want to see, and they shouldn't be. I mean, people unfollow me all the time for shit that I say, not what I really look like, or maybe they do unfollow me for what I look like too. I don't know. But my point is that I don't take offense if somebody like listens to an episode of Just Talking and is like, I really don't like this. This makes me, uncomfortable. Then don't listen to it. If you don't like it, it's fine. But it's not, I'm not offended by that.
No.
And it's the same thing where it's like, if you want to post basically nudes on your Instagram and stuff, that's fine to do that. But you have to understand that there's a market for it, and there's a lot of people who aren't looking to view that kind of stuff. So you can't be mad about it when people don't want to see it.
Especially with comedians. I mean, this is something I think that, all three of us definitely saw a lot of, and a lot of comedians saw a lot of, is that at the very beginning of quarantine, like a few weeks into it, and I don't know if it's just they're not getting the normal attention they're used to when they're doing live shows and they're doing whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of female comedians got into like the 99% nude posting game on Instagram. Not like it's a game where like I'm 99% nude. They were just like, look at my breasts.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said breasts. Like, look at them, look at my breasts. But there's also, so there's that. I would like to hear your opinion on that. And then also, I'm trying my best to not sound misogynistic, but
Kelly and I try our best too.
I understand that, but it's
about your
in
episode?
comedy where I think it's almost like a weird back and forth thing, but like there are people in comedy, especially like it's a men and women are together all over, and it's like I personally find it hard to, in some situations, I don't know if respect is the right word, but if it's like there's somebody that is my peer, and whether they're funny, whether they're not, if they are doing this, but they're also like all they post online is like them all the way like basically naked, and their whole thing is like, oh, I do stand up in a bikini sometimes, and I'm like, look at my Instagram, and I have a lot of followers on Instagram because I'm a hot chick and I like show my tits for the most part, and then that is somebody where sometimes where I'm like, I have an issue seeing them as my peer because they aren't talented per se.
They're relying on a gimmick.
When they're relying on kind of a gimmick. And it's like, it's a weird back and forth that I think I have with a lot of people, like kind of in the same opinion, that are like, why do I need to respect this person as an artist, and as my peer, if they don't rely on talent or artistry, they rely on physical whatever.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And I'm not a comedian, but ideally you wouldn't have to really rely on physical comedy for your stand-up.
Yeah.
From this complete layperson kind of perspective. And so that's a big part of it. But at the same time, if like what's comedic about being in a bikini? Like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, breasts are breasts, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to be sexualized. We sexualize them, but they don't have to, and they shouldn't be. Like, a nipple's a nipple, whatever. But I think it's playing off of the fact that it is very taboo for women to show so much of their bodies, and then trying to certain, like, no, I have a right to do this. But when it's done in the name of comedy, if that's the message, it really undermines it, not to mention undermines your comedic abilities.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, it's using that as a way to advance your career in an area that's not important, but you're using it as a tool, whereas other people, like Bruce, you're not going to pose naked to advance your comedy career. That's not a thing. But women, hot women...
It would actually take it the opposite direction. I'm just saying.
But hot women can do that.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, it's kind of like... And there's a thing in comedy, too, where women who are, like, legitimately beautiful will purposefully dress themselves down in a certain way, where this is like Whitney Cummings is a good example of that, where it's like she's a very good looking woman, but she's not going to go on stage in something that's like super crazy revealing, and will pretty much like dress down to a certain point because she's a great comedian and is like, I want to be appreciated as the comedian that I am, and not because I'm just some chick on stage.
Well, and it's you know, it is borderline to me, there's a bit of self-awareness, obviously, that's missing with these people who are posting themselves basically nude and then getting on, you know, like Bruce is saying, same show that Bruce is on, and acting as though they're there for the exact same reasons. You know, it's like there has to be a little bit of an understanding that it's like, yeah, I am on this show, and I need to prove myself as a comedian being on this show, because the way I got on this show is not for my comedy. So I need to prove myself as a comic if I am going to be here, because that is my job right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's the same thing with if you were to walk into a modeling agency and, you know, all the girls are there. They've been busting their asses with photographers and stuff like that. And you show up. And yeah, you have nice pictures of yourself online, but the way you got there is because the director of the shoot liked your personality.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. The other models are going to be like, she didn't bust her ass in the way that we did.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
They're going to be annoyed. Yeah.
They're going to be annoyed.
How do you deal with a patient that you don't like?
That is, I'm like, I guess it would depend on why I don't like them, right?
Do you feel like... Well, no, go ahead. Because I have another follow-up question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So if I don't like them because they're like pushing on my own buttons, I a lot of times just like process and talk with my supervisor as to like what buttons the person is pressing.
Yeah.
And why, because it's their therapy. We shouldn't be dealing with my shit with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
If they are, you know, just outright being like misogynistic or racist assholes, and I don't like them because of that, honestly, it's like mental loop-de-loops just trying to figure out like where the pain is really coming from, if that makes sense. Because if they're saying something, like I had someone tell me if I was Mexican, my life would be a lot easier, and they were white. And I'm sitting, you know, there, and I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, she knows I'm Mexican, right? Like, I literally just, because I had, you know, said something along the lines that definitely told her what my identity is, because I'm biracial, and it was one of those things of like, really? That's where you really wanted to go. But it was honestly, it wasn't even about my identity. It wasn't about Mexican individuals. It was about the fact that she grew up with a crappy family.
What was her reasoning for that? For saying that if she was Mexican, it would be better?
So there was a lot of not misconceptions, but there was a lot of like just stereotypes, I think, of they really value family and you stay together and you just like look after family because they're family.
Mm-hmm.
And because she did not have that, she was just like, obviously this person, there was like some celebrity that she really looked up to, and you know, this person has a great life and this is their identity, and we're basically the same. Like, she got the same tattoos.
Can we know what the celebrity is?
I don't remember otherwise. Yeah.
Mexican.
It was Chewy from Chelsea Handler.
Mexican with tattoos.
Mexican tattoos.
See, that almost is interesting. Where I don't know about life being easier, because on the surface that sounds like a weird, like, oh, well, Mexicans got it like this, but it's. I think that she just probably came off the wrong way, because it's almost like I wish I was of a different culture, because if that I was of a different culture, my family would care more about each other.
It's just a strange
It's
thing
a weird
to
thing to say.
Like, what you should say is, sometimes I wish I grew up with a better family.
Yeah.
If that
Because
makes total sense, but the connection
between the
Mexican
two
is throwing me for a bit of a loop.
insensitive. So
People
what?
just make connections.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So what? So if you were to, let's say you had somebody that made you like uncomfortable to a point where you're like, I don't think, like, are you able to say to your supervisor, this is simply not a match?
Yeah, because obviously if I'm having so much countertransference that I cannot like work and be present for that client, I'm going to do harm by just having them continue to see me.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be able to provide any kind of interventions.
Because you're not able to do the things that you're supposed to do, being so distracted by how horrendous they are as a human being.
Or trying to just like manage my own stuff.
Is it against the law to send them down a bad path? Like, let's say you had
well,
let's say you had someone you
get a
hated,
little funky
right?
with it.
Let's say
Kelly's like the Joker.
let's say you had a guy who you know, you just really didn't like him, and you're like, what about divorcing your wife?
Or you look at them and you're like,
about-
I'm not saying your mom didn't care. But
Are you allowed to send them into a bit of a spiral? No.
no,
Well, I
Kelly,
usually
why
don't
would you?
have to, because they're already going down a spiral themselves.
Yeah,
I don't
Kelly,
know.
what are you talking about?
I don't
Also,
know.
You're in this profession to help people, Kelly.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
sometimes you know, you see a mess and you go, I could clean it up, or I could make a bigger mess.
Yeah, not exactly how I view the world.
This is why you're
Yeah,
not in
our-
her shoes. This
our-
is why
our
we're
first-
the talk. We do this.
It is interesting that you're dealing with an actual person.
As a blow up doll? Like, what would I be dealing with?
No, it's
Kelly's
it's
just
just
trying
really
to-
interesting
she's
to
trying
think
to-
of the gravity of
Yes,
the situation.
she's trying to put in perspective
you
how
are-
much you're so important
exactly.
to these people's
I mean, you
lives.
could really do some damage
Kelly.
if you thought about it. This is why I don't do it, because there are some people, I swear to God,
We
if
were
I had
just
like a
talking about
racist
this
guy,
last night. Kelly cannot help but feed into whatever. If somebody's
The crazy.
crazy, she does not. She just
need to see how
needs
far
to
we
know
can take
more.
it.
Well, also, like, the people that I see are not inherently crazy, right? Like, just because I'm a
Right.
mental health
Of
professional.
course.
And I'm not even talking about mentally crazy. Just like
They make
they're
bad decisions.
they're a little off the rocker.
Yeah,
You know, it's not clinical. It's just they're a little goofy or whatever.
Yeah, no. The first, I'm fairly certain it's the first standard in our ethics code is do no harm. So I'm pretty sure that would go against it.
Yeah, that would probably do that.
Yeah,
I did. I did want to ask you, because, you know, obviously there's so many things that you are taught that have probably even since the beginning of your education in this field have changed over time, or new developments have been made and stuff. Is there anything that you have that, as an opinion from years of experience in this field, that you think would be an unpopular opinion, but you would love to educate more people on, or change somebody's viewpoint on it?
Sorry, I'm just like baffled by the question, because like something that I've learned.
Something that you've learned that perhaps you disagree with, that you look at and you say, this isn't, I don't, through my experience, I'm seeing something different?
So there's, I think within psychology, especially like historically, there's very much been the view that if you're a therapist, the mental health professional, the doctor, however you want to refer to them, you are like a blank slate. Like you are not supposed to bring anything in. You, like everything that happens is about the client and they're projecting onto you. Like you have no feelings. You are just a robot, basically. And that's a fairly antiquated view, and it's definitely getting not to be a big thing anymore, but there was still like some people that I interacted with through my training that had that point of view.
Yeah.
And that's just not feasible.
Right.
Honestly, like if I'm seeing clients as I do right now, looking the way that I do, like I can't hide my identities. I can't just be very blank. I can't not show who I am.
Yeah.
Especially since at least how I work, I'm very relational. And so it's all about the relationship in the therapy room and how that can be reparative and hopefully repair other areas of their life. Like they'll learn better like communication skills or whatever it is that they're wanting to focus on and just be able to translate that into the rest of their world from practicing it in therapy.
Do you feel like when you show a bit more of yourself, do you feel like the relationship develops at a quicker rate? Like they get more comfortable with you because they're like, this is a person who I'm talking to. This is,
I think so.
You know?
Especially when working with
do you work with kids at all?
Yeah, I used to. I hated it, but mostly because of the parents. I didn't hate the kids. I hated the parents. The parents were the worst. Oh God. But if I show, because obviously, again, you don't want to disclose to the point where it's now about you in the therapy room.
Right.
You only want to disclose if it's going to be helpful. And as a feminist psychologist, a lot of times I'll disclose my identities because I'm not working with someone that has the exact same identities, you know, 95% of the time. And so that's a part of how I establish and try to bring in rapport and say like, hey, we're equals here. I'm the expert in psychology. You're the expert in your life. You have these different identities. I come with all of these views, and that may like come into point. And so if I'm asking questions about it, I'm asking questions to learn, and I will learn separately from this room because I don't want you to spend your therapy educating me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Let's talk about, because feminism is such a big part in, what you do and what you study and everything. Let's talk about feminism for just a second, because I used to be like, I am a feminist. I am. I don't know what's
feminist.
Over what's that?
What kind of feminist?
Oh, woman. And, woman, feminist. I really thought. And it's not even that I don't feel that way anymore, because I do think that I am that way inherently. I that's how I think. But I won't tell people anymore.
Really?
I will not tell people anymore.
That's really not that uncommon.
Because it
I'm
gets
shocked to hear
such a backlash that I'm like, I literally don't even want to
I mean, I don't necessarily bring it up, but if somebody asked me, then I'll say yeah.
Me, I would say yes, but I don't talk about it ever. I would never tweet something now saying that I'm a feminist. That's just wouldn't happen because...
Well, but I think now at a certain point, I mean, I think also at a certain point, maybe in like 2011, 2012, it was kind of like the time to announce that you were a feminist. Like it was now it's kind of like, okay, if you're not on board with the equality thing, what are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know, but I have to tell you, I mean, almost every single time I see a Twitter profile that has feminist in the thing, and then I read their tweets, they annoy me. I don't know why.
Well, it's just not something that it's not something that you are looking for in regards to social media, entertainment wise or whatever. I mean, it's...
Well, I think I just don't... Maybe it's that I want it to be so normalized that I don't know if it should even be broadcasted anymore.
It's almost like
no.
maybe if diverse sexual orientations were normal, we wouldn't necessarily have a coming out thing. We wouldn't assume people are heterosexual.
Exactly.
Because honestly, a lot of women won't say that they are a feminist for a number of reasons, but mostly because of the stigma and the backlash.
Yeah.
I mean, feminism in and of itself feels exclusionary because we're talking about the female experience in the name, right? It's feminism.
Right.
But it's similar to other movements in terms of like civil rights movements, the Chicano movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. You're going to really try and bring attention to that marginalized group, right? You have a bunch of houses on fire. You're not going to spray all the houses with water. You're going to direct it there. And there's also... God, I think I came across 10 different types of feminism because there's liberal, there's socialist, there's radical, there's
I'm not radical about anything. I'll tell you that right now. I don't have the energy to be radical about shit.
Yeah, but there's like ecofeminism, there's global feminism, there's so many different types of it.
What's the one that's like, hey, everybody, if we could just, be good, that'd be great.
I feel like I'm
What's
more
that
on
one?
the lens of a global one.
Yeah, global.
Just because it's like...
Well, because I am definitely that type of person who's like, I do understand, yes, over here we think that if you wear close to nothing on stage, you should be able to do that. But in, across the globe, people feel empowered by not showing even their face. You know what I mean?
So,
I don't give a shit what you wear.
I mean,
I don't think you're global feminist.
The thing is that feminism, regardless of the type, it's always a goal of equity for, it's historically been the sexes or genders. But in my opinion, if it's not intersectional feminism, it's not feminism anymore.
That's how I kind of, I'm definitely, it's the intersectionality that I think is so important. Understanding that like, I'm gonna do what I think is best for me, and the women around me I hope are doing what's best for them. But that might look totally different from somebody who's across the globe, and so they should be doing what feels right for them.
Also, shout out to Kimberly Crenshaw, who like originally coined it, I think, if I remember correctly.
Kimberly Crenshaw?
Yeah.
What does she do?
So I think, she's a professor. I can't remember exactly which studies. Yeah. There you go. Really was. Yeah. So she's an American lawyer, civil rights. Yeah. I'm like, she started teaching. Yep. School of Law. There we go. Yeah. So she developed with race theory, because there's in the 80s and 90s is when women of color feminism really started to like take a hold, because it was coming off of the civil rights movement and whatnot. And so it's really just trying to acknowledge the various identities that make an individual and notice. And then this is a different theory from a different person, and I can't remember their name, but like the knapsack of privilege. You have different privileges and oppressions based off of those interacting identities, and it's not necessarily that you as like a white person are constantly privileged in every aspect, because you might come from a different socioeconomic status, you might have a different gender identity, sexual orientation, whatever it might be. But bringing it back to feminism, the way like the different types differ is how do you address those areas of inequality and work towards change. So like the socialist feminist will say like, hey, we really need to dismantle this capitalistic structure. We need to create a different way of economics as a way to ensure that there is equity in terms of jobs.
Do they want to take out Amazon?
I mean, I guess, yeah, sure. I mean, monopoly. Who knows?
It's always the easiest way for me to understand something. Do they like Amazon or not?
I'm pretty sure at this point people don't really like Amazon on the whole, right? Like we can see the pros, but at the same time they're making some choices that are choices.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I like it, but I'm gonna keep using it.
Well, the problem is because
they're the fastest
they
people.
get things here in time. That's the problem.
Why do you need it right now?
Well, that's a great point.
See,
Mariah makes a great
argument
point.
fucking destroyed.
Yeah, there you go.
There
Why
you
do
go.
you need it right now, Kel?
Mariah,
I don't know. I guess I don't. Shoot.
Is what you're talking about with the, I guess, knapsack theory, is that kind of an, I wouldn't say argument or answer, but it's kind of a
Response?
response to something like critical race theory.
Mm,
Where critical race theory meaning that it's basically taught that no matter what is that the critical race theory is basically if no matter what I don't have anything.
sorry, I
pulled
just
up.
saw my school that
really?
I work for.
Knapsack
It's
of privilege.
yeah. If you
UMBC?
no, scroll down because it's right there.
Danza.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yep, I'm a counselor.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
Just
yeah.
revealed your.
It's crazy.
No, I'm kidding.
Go
Is
ahead.
that
Oh, no.
because critical race theory meaning is the idea of critical race theory that when that is implemented, it basically means that regardless of kind of what this is saying, regardless of upbringing, regardless of anything, if you are white or Caucasian, whatever, that means it is in your DNA from the time you're born, basically, to feel superior. Is that
No.
Is that
There's so in psychology in general, DNA only does so much in terms of nature versus nurture. Like nurture is like 75%, if not 80% of how we interact, right? And so from an early age, all things being equal, if we're really just going to look at race, there are going to be preferential experiences that Caucasian individuals will experience. I think, I can't remember exactly who did the study or whatnot, but they had a bunch of little girls pick their favorite doll.
Mm-hmm.
And they had dolls that represented a wide variety of racial identities. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone really said like the prettiest doll was the white doll. And it is just from like messages that you get on social media from parents, from whatnot, because there is a very like Eurocentric Western beauty ideal.
Mm-hmm.
People who have no chance of meeting that just because of how their DNA put
genetic
together,
makeup.
and how they present, that's where there's like that underlying privilege, even if you did make everything being exactly what it was or
Mhm.
equal.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's crazy. I mean, it really is. It's
that makes
wild.
sense in that even the interesting so even in like the study like that kids who weren't white were
Mhm.
choosing the one that was because in their mind based on whether it's Disney cartoons or like
Mm-hmm.
unattainable standards of whatever.
Yeah, because if you think about it, the only Disney movie that has a black woman, she spends majority of that movie as a frog.
Never saw
It's
it.
looking bad. I never saw it either.
No.
Princess
You know
and
what?
the Frog.
Which
Yeah.
doesn't even make me look good
I
either.
tried to watch
Is
it.
that-
It was kind of boring.
Oh, I kind of like it.
Really?
I
You know what
I
a
like
movie
Disney.
I did love
Put the
was
racist stamp on this one.
no. The one that I did love was Moana.
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 Moana ruled.
So then I do want to ask you, because this happened a while ago where somebody called another individual and it was like basically it was a lot of white people, only a couple people that weren't white, and somebody referred to one of the girls saying, "You're so beautiful, you're so exotic looking."
Ugh, I hate that. Sorry, that just like eeks me.
Yeah.
How are they exotic?
How are they exotic?
How are they exotic?
How are they exotic?
I don't understand.
Majority of people are not white.
Mm-hmm.
How is that exotic?
They're
I don't know.
exotic to maybe that person because it's not something they grew up around.
But it's-
But why?
I
Why
mean-
do you have to fetishize it? Why do you
Yeah,
have to
why do you have
sexualize
to-
it?
Sexualization,
I
yeah,
mean,
yes.
you're not a chameleon from the
Yeah,
anaconda,
yeah.
whatever the hell, Amazon River,
I
whoever.
remember it always because I'm obviously I've never referred to somebody in that way.
I call myself exotic every day.
I'm like,
but
someone's called me that.
it just was very like, oh, that's a. I mean, because you could just why can't they just be beautiful?
Mhm.
Why
Why are
is
you
it? Why does it have
exotic?
to be noticed
It's-
that they are?
It's like, wow, you speak really well for whatever
Right.
marginalized
Yeah.
group you want to input there.
Yeah, and also like I don't know about you, but I've heard people who have English as their first language and they fucking suck at it.
Hi.
Hi, it's me.
The fetishization thing is very interesting.
It
because
is
it's,
interesting.
What I've seen a lot, especially in comedy, is people who didn't grow up around like different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
Where like I think I'm very lucky to have grown up around all kinds of different races of people and like been part of like a very small white population at like my elementary school and stuff, that I see a lot of people that maybe don't even realize they're doing it, but they're doing this weird fetishization thing where they didn't grow up around any kind of these marginalized groups, so they are like putting off this energy of like, I need everybody to know I'm not bad.
Yeah.
In doing that, they do this fetishization thing they probably don't even realize they're doing, but it's almost more racist than being racist.
So there's a concept of benevolent sexism, right? And I think it can apply to racism as well. It's like, here, let me open the door for you, right? Like ambivalent sex. No. Benevolent. It's the other one, the research net. Sorry, I was like, no. Where like hostile racism, like we're very like, yes, that's bad, but benevolence a little bit more nuanced, and that they're gonna be like, well, why are you upset about it? I'm just being nice. Like, oh, you should be taken care of because, you know, you're fragile, you're, you know, whatever it might be. For in terms of race, it's like, wow, I really like your, you know, this, or the people that like touch hair without asking permission to touch hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Like, oh, well, I'm just trying to appreciate it. And it's just like, no, you're crossing a massive boundary and getting into someone's personal space.
Yeah.
And making them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. People are so weird. People are so weird.
Get the fuck out of their hair.
Would you touch anybody else's hair?
What the fuck are you doing?
Can I tell you something? Is that I grew up in the type of neighborhood where my hair was so blonde that people were touching my hair.
Yeah.
At the store and stuff. And my mom was like, yeah, fuck it, who cares? But like, I mean, all kinds of black people, Mexican people are like, his hair is so blonde. Can I touch it?
Oh, well, at least they asked.
Yeah. I mean, they're not walking up and they're like, ooh. Like,
I can't even imagine if I felt someone touching my hair and I did not.
You didn't know?
I mean, we've had people comment on our
pet.
Because Kelly and I have bow legs. We have people comment on them all the time, but let me tell you, the only people that compliment them are black people.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what
black
it is.
people love them,
but I don't know what it is. But they always compliment us on our bowed legs.
I have no idea.
And it's like, is it racist for me to look it up? I don't know.
Like,
why is it racist for you to like look things up and try and learn about it?
You're right.
I mean,
I don't think it's offensive for me to Google like, what's with the trend?
yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's
bow-legged men.
Honestly, I might have looked it up one time in regards to why do people like it? And it has to do with like women appearing as though they'd be good at birthing a child.
Oh, you mean what people have commented on me as having Mexican birthing hips?
Something like that.
You have a wider set pelvis. Yeah.
Yeah. So people assume
that baby just gonna fly right out.
Baby's
slip and slide.
It'll be an easy, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Here, let's go to the topic.
But white people always make fun of them.
It's true.
That's a weird thing.
Let's go to the topic of gender, because this is something that clearly Allie and I are a little unaware on, if you will, or just...
We know it's a spectrum. That's about where I'm at.
Well, everything is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So, I'll have you know that I took a quiz the other day.
Ooh.
On what? Yeah.
Was it
on
BuzzFeed?
gender? It's a quiz.
Okay.
To figure out if you have a bias towards cisgender or trans.
And plus a attitudes test.
Yes. Yes.
So what happened to you?
It said that
Making you the victim.
No. That I am literally across the board fine with everybody.
Oh, that makes sense.
I
think I would be about the same.
Literally no preference,
Yeah.
no nothing, just total disdain towards every person I meet. And it was I wasn't shocked by it because I was kind of like, I don't care either way.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do with it, it's your business. You
Sure.
know?
And I think that's how Kelly and I kind of were raised in a sense. I mean, even when we, if I even discuss, with my parents, like, oh, so-and-so is actually, trans or something. The initial response is, well, what does it matter? How's that your business?
Or
That's
or
literally-
my favorite, which was, I don't want to hear about that.
See, but that's like that one's a bit more problematic.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely. But that was said about everything.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't really want to hear about that.
but if you can't have a discussion about something, where you,
Right,
I
and
know,
I think
I know.
that's where there's been kind of a disconnect where it's like Kelly and I obviously are not there's no hatred going on. It's clearly just a lack of information.
And understand. I mean, we literally.
But it's on us to educate ourselves.
Oh,
I mean, let's be
100%.
honest.
So, but of course, I got questions because I'm like,
I may have answers.
great. So, obviously, people can change their gender if they want to. It's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
How many times could you change gender before in your head it's more of like a personality thing?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Because gender's basically a performance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting on a show.
Yeah. Well, so because
Every day?
you're so
I'm a
excited now,
star.
you're like the comedian in me is so excited. So these earrings are not inherently feminine, right? We
Yeah.
say
Right.
that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they look very nice.
Well, thank you. And
Where'd you get them? No, okay.
they were a gift. I have no idea. Like the shirt, the way it's cut, it's not inherently feminine. It's
Sure.
just it fits for my body, right?
Right.
But we have these assumptions that say like we're gonna categorize this as feminine, we're gonna categorize this as masculine. So even if you are like a male-bodied individual, you can still identify as a man and wear a dress. Like, oh God, what's that gentleman's name?
Harry Styles.
Well, not Harry Styles. That's not who I was thinking.
He put on
I
a
was,
dress.
I was
Jonathan
thinking,
Van Ness? No.
No, I was going like not recent. It was,
Oh, okay.
It starts with an I. It's not Iggy. Is it Izzy?
Iggy Pop?
Is it? I don't
Eddie
think.
Izzard.
Eddie Izzard. Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah. I think in one of his famous
Comedian
interviews, someone said, what do you think about wearing women's dresses? And he's like, well, they're not women's dresses, they're my dresses.
Great point.
Oh, love that point.
Yeah. And so when you're asking, like, how many times can a person switch before it
It's
becomes
not
like
really
a personality
switching.
thing?
It's not
Like,
switch.
is it just like
Interesting.
what they're wearing? Is it their pronouns that they're wanting to use at the time?
It's a full-on change.
So, okay.
What's a full-on change?
I'm thinking like a full-on change where they do
like
use
a full-on
different pronouns.
announcing to the public, I will be now
this.
known as this. How many
times is where you're like, okay, this person needs to have a conversation with somebody.
Well, I
Like
think you're talking, Kelly, more about fluidity rather than going like you wouldn't say that Caitlyn Jenner is fluid. You would say that she is
A trans woman.
she's a
Trans
trans woman
woman.
versus somebody like Eddie Izzard who kind of is a more androgynous type. I don't know.
And
if
I
that's-
think Eddie Izzard identifies as a man, correct?
he
So,
goes kind of
I'm
back
not
and
even
forth a little
talking
bit.
about the
What
fluidity.
you're talking about is
It's
like
like
if
hard
if Caitlyn
switches.
Jenner were to go back, forth, when do you say as a psychologist this is not or this is normal? I don't know. But like when do you look at it and say, okay,
This is more of
Something-
a disorder.
yeah, something's happening here that's not as though they feel like they are supposed to be a woman and
Well, the question would be, are they distressed or are you distressed?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Because-
this is a hypothetical, so I have no idea.
Because if they're not distressed by, playing with gender and by switching their gender identities, because there are a number of people that I've worked with who identify as agender or gender fluid. And so their pronouns change on a day-to-day basis. Like sometimes they're feeling more masculine, sometimes they're feeling more feminine.
Do you think that there is a level added to it, though, of understanding that the general public is not going to be on the same page with you every single day? They don't, you know what I mean?
And that's why there's those buttons, right?
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean?
So
buttons.
It's fairly common at this point where I in my office where I used to work, because remote working now, I had a collection of buttons where you could pick which one you were wearing and how you wanted to identify it at that.
Isn't that helpful?
They have a lot of those she or they buttons. They have a lot of them being sold around here. Which I guess, if all you have to put on is buttons.
I haven't seen them before.
No. I would be on the same page as you, where it's like, okay, so because obviously you don't want to offend anybody if they feel.
No. There is a. Do you think that also, if you are the type of person who is making these switches, do you think that there is a level of accountability and responsibility to, if you want to be acknowledged a certain way, wear the button? Or say that is something that you... because
it also depends on where you're at, right?
Right,
Like, you're going to be far more comfortable doing that than you would in the South, right?
Right.
Also, it is okay for you guys to ask. If you're uncertain, you can just be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. These are my pronouns. I don't want to misgender you. I want to make sure I'm referring to you respectfully.
Yeah.
How would you like me to refer to you?
Yeah. And I think that is one of those things that needs to be normalized in conversation. Because
asking.
Asking, and also not being insulted as a cisgender person if someone's like, what are your pronouns? Oh, she, her, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, move on. Let's move on. It does. Who gives a shit?
By the way, mine are she, her. Didn't do that at the
beginning.
beginning.
Mine are she, her.
She, her, yeah.
But see, do you feel that that's something that needs to happen in every conversation, or if maybe it's unsure?
It could be if it's unsure, but why not do it in every conversation? Why is it not, hi, my name's Mariah, my pronouns are she, her?
Yeah, if you're just meeting somebody.
Yeah.
Especially, right?
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know. It's kind of a more difficult switch, I would say, to
it's definitely
I think the
it's
biggest
interesting
problem
because
is,
it's so easy, but it has been
people have such a problem with it.
People have such a problem with it. I think it is partly because it's been going on for so long that you introduce yourself as, hi, I'm Kelly, hi, I'm Allie, and that's it.
Before, whenever I got a new partner and I would meet their family for the first time, oftentimes they would introduce themselves and say, you can call me X, right? Instead of you can call me by my first name, or you can call me Mrs. Ramito. Like when my mom met you guys for the first time, she said, you can call me Michelle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what she said.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep.
Because I think you guys were just so formal and kind of like, hi, Mrs. Wright.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't give a shit if someone asks me what my thing is. So it's like, why can't I ask you?
No. It's totally. It's not. I think it just.
I think the problem is if I were to ask, let's say you're a hardcore Republican. Let's just say, right? And I say, hi, I'm Kelly. My pronouns are she, her. Then are they gonna be like, oh, you do pronouns? Oh, you do what? You know what I'm saying? It's
and people get uncomfortable by that.
That's their problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is their
You're
problem.
right.
But
you're right.
But what I think what you're saying is that people obviously want to be liked. It's like in our nature to want to be liked.
Yeah.
So when we meet people and we kind of already have the understanding based off of
what we've gathered
or what we've previously heard or whatever, to say right off the bat something that at this point in time is more political than it should be.
I don't understand why it's politicized.
I don't get it at all. But my point is that for a lot of people, it's uncomfortable to say something right when you meet somebody that could polarize the relationship more than just not saying it at all.
You got transgender people on both sides.
Yes.
So it's just a silly conversation that it's even
right.
You really do. So it's just
mean, but
so many things are politicized now, though.
Borderline everything.
Well, I think that it's like if you do identify yourself as a different kind of pronoun, that people are inferring, which a lot of inferring happens, where it's like if people say, I do this, I live here, immediately it's like, well, that means you
Blank.
this, and that.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So if I said my name is Kelly, my pronouns are she, her, people might think that I'm trans.
no, I think a lot of people would
Well,
be
they
like,
might.
duh. Where it's like, I feel like, I like somebody just using, I guess,
Keep 'em guessing.
Like using myself as an example of being like, I think that it's obvious in a scenario that I don't stray outside of whatever, I guess, normal gender lines, or somebody like my dad.
You believe that like you come across as cisgender, so there's no point in. Which I mean, I feel the same way. Like I feel like when you look at me, it is clear that I am.
Well, Bruce, you have big dude behavior.
Hey, thanks. I just also feel like a lot of people find it, kind
Redundant?
Unnecessary.
redundant and a little bit unnecessary, where it's like,
To state, yeah.
to some people, whether they're on whatever side, will be like, well, there's so much other shit going on that we probably, it doesn't even, it's beyond.
And it also took like 2 seconds to say all of our preferred pronouns, or not preferred pronouns, just pronouns. And so that's the thing is that
My preferred one is motherfucker.
yes, naturally. And so the thing is that it really just, there is not a lot of effort into it, and so it's like, why not?
Why not?
And the
say it, yeah.
assumptions, like, it makes sense because over history we had to operate off of heuristics in order to survive. You know, we're going to assume something's a threat because we've been threatened by it before, and we're just going to keep that going because it'll ensure our survival. But now that we're not under like super immense life or death threat every day from like the lion that's our neighbor,
Right.
we don't have to necessarily rely on them anymore. And if
So
it's
interesting.
a point of being liked, like again, that's again evolutionarily really beneficial, because if we weren't liked, we were dead.
Right.
And now it's a little bit of flexibility and not having to be liked by the entire world, right? Before we were just having to be liked by our tribe.
Yeah, now it's like, I mean, you just have so many more eyes on you than you did before. Now, that's why some people choose to not be on social media, et cetera, because they're like, I just want to live my life and, you know, no one to look at me and stuff. But it's simply not that way anymore. Now with everything online.
Yeah, and you can always get far much more information online. Like, I think it's called the ABCs of Gay, and I can't remember the author. Then they literally just told me about it. Where if you're confused or questioning language about it, ABCs of Gay, not gender identity. It's a different book. Or ABCs of LGBT could be potentially one of them. Ash Hardell, that's right. In terms of just like finding out what words to use, right? Because like cisgender is a word that no one, I think you had made the comment that if someone had ever called you cisgender before, you would have been like, what the hell is that? Or
Yeah,
was
no,
wondering-
literally.
Does cis stand for something? CIS? Or
no, I don't think so. So it's when you have a gender identity that aligns with the sex assigned at birth. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because so sex, like we're talking about biological like components in terms of like primary sex characteristics and secondary ones, but it's not just, you know, male or female bodied. There is also intersex, but I think that term is also outdated. So divergent sex characteristics or sex presentations where you may have like an extra Y or X chromosome, and so your primary sex characteristics might look different.
Yeah.
Right. You might have ovaries as well as a penis. You know, it's just
Yeah.
a lot. That's why I made the comment earlier of like, well, everything's a spectrum, because even
Right.
like biology, which we're like, no, that's hard science. It's just like, no, there's a lot of gray area in there. But the gray area was never safe for us, and now we can actually sit in it.
Yeah. Man, imagine having ovaries and a dick. Wild.
I mean, it's all from similar tissue. Like, the reason why they can't tell you the sex of your child until a certain point is because the development switches. Like,
So it's really not. We're not that far off.
no,
Everybody's
literally, testes
kinda-
and ovaries are made from the same tissue. It's just how it develops. In
Do
the
you
womb.
think when someone comes out of the womb and they have both, do you think the doctor laughs at all?
They shouldn't.
I really
That'd be
hope not.
unprofessional.
That's like super traumatic for like birth is not that they come out with both sex characteristics, but labor is a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden the doctor starts laughing, I'm sorry, if I'm like in those stirrups and like in so much physical pain, and someone
I had to
starts
ask the
laughing,
question. I don't know.
You had to.
I had to.
No option.
Yeah.
this is a safer space for you to ask questions.
Yeah, the doctor's just like,
You're telling me. You're
what the
telling me
fuck?
a doctor has never laughed at the wrong time.
I'm not saying
Never.
that they haven't, but they at least. I mean, even before COVID, they were wearing masks in there. So
That's true.
right.
Yeah.
You'd have
I
to
don't
hear
even
it.
know. I mean, there's got to be some horror scenario.
Well, I mean, there's just got to be. I mean, I'm sure there's been once or twice where a doctor has been like, "That's interesting. That's different than I thought it would." I mean, like that, I'm sure has happened.
Yeah.
Now whether
I
or
know
not
they
they
have to-
disclose
Yeah.
that
they
emotion
probably
to
gotta
the
have a pretty
patient,
good poker face.
yeah, probably.
But also, I mean, if the patient's knocked out, you know, on anesthesiologist or whatever, then it's kind of like, hey, you could probably laugh and get away with it.
Well, the problem is that and then people are bringing in the telephones nowadays and setting
You
up
just
the,
hope that
the,
you're.
the camera phone recorded during the
Well,
procedure
you're
in
just
case
hoping
anything
that
weird goes
You're
on.
just hoping that when you're a doctor,
know.
that you're just hoping that what's up?
Recording the procedure,
Yeah,
like you're
what
gonna
is-
watch
wait,
it
what?
later.
There was a woman. It was she caught her doctors being racist towards her. She went under the knife and she recorded it. This was just in
That's
2020. She recorded
no,
it.
that's sterile.
Yeah, and
Wait,
they
how
were
did she
saying
record it?
numerous
so many
racist things.
germs.
Huh?
Your phone has so many germs. That's
I don't know
not
Where
what
did
sterile.
she? Where did she put the phone?
I don't know, but it was. I mean, I saw the video.
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah, they said she had wide birthing hips.
Or did she? I could have sworn. Yeah. No, I mean she recorded it because I remember it was like, I mean that was the headline was patient records
Because I mean, it makes sense if
racist
you're,
conversation during.
like, getting your like your wisdom teeth out. Like,
Yeah.
outpatient procedure. I did not have to wear a gown for it, so I could have, like, if I had a pocket in there, I could literally just turn my phone around and record the entire time and hear what they were doing. Later, obviously, because I'd be out.
I know.
But went under the. Oh. I'm so concerned.
Yeah. I guess they had they had said a couple things prior that she was like, you know what, when I go under, I'm gonna record this because they've been a little weird so far that I bet they say some stupid stuff during it, and they did.
Yeah.
I know. Crazy. Anyway, Kelly.
Okay, so the last big question that I have is why do some people have transphobia towards some trans people and not others? In the same with homophobia, like why are there some people they're like, oh, it's cool that you're gay, but then other people it's like,
Because
not
you're
cool.
the exception. You're the token representation of what a good person looks like. So if we think about it, a lot of the like heterosexism
Uh-huh.
is really coming from a place of you are acting outside the bounds of these like prescribed gender roles
Uh-huh.
that I really like hang so closely to. Like,
Mhm.
and so for, let's say, a woman who is a trans woman
Mhm.
who, you know, really presents very femininely
Mhm.
and passes,
Mhm.
well, someone may not have an issue with her because she is performing gender in a way that is within that like normal
Mhm.
bounds for this person that's acceptable. They're hyper feminine, so they are obviously okay. However, if a trans woman is still dressing fairly like androgynously and is not actively choosing to have top surgery or, you know, take hormones or whatever it might be, whatever their choice is,
Mhm.
because they're not choosing to behave in these very like strict, rigid gender roles, then they might have more issues with that. Same with sexual orientation, right? With a gay man, there's again the spectrum of how you interact with the world, and if you're more feminine or if you're more masculine. If you are a gay man who's more masculine and still like has traditional gender roles and the way that you interact, you might be okay.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people who are like, I don't, like, they look at a guy who's very masculine and they might be gay, but they're like, I don't really care. Yeah, he likes dudes, whatever. But, like, if a flamboyant gay guy came
that
over,
makes them uncomfortable.
it'd be like, I'm uncomfortable. What are you going to touch me? Whatever. And typically the gay guy is like, I wasn't going to touch you.
Also, God forbid you be treated like women have been treated over the course of
God forbid for
fucking
2 minutes
kidding me.
somebody finds you attractive and acts on it immediately without you wanting to.
Bruce?
Go ahead.
What are your thoughts on this,
Hey,
sir?
Bruce Gray, he, him. It's it's interesting because I grew up in a
He, him. He, his.
he, him.
Yeah, it's he, him, his. It's all
He, him,
about
He, him,
his.
his.
Yeah.
You forgot one.
I don't do he, him. It's 2. You get 2 off the top. He, him. Leave the other
At
one.
that point, we could assume, right?
But
Yeah.
you shouldn't.
It could mix an ass out of you and me.
He, him, she's.
Wait, what's my third one? She, her.
Hers. It's because you add
possessive.
an ass. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just that I like my my whole family is like very conservative. Like Central California is basically Texas, and my dad's sister is a lesbian, like hardcore, and like college softball national championship lesbian, and so she has this very large.
Did you know you can get credits in lesbian?
You can.
Did you know that?
Yeah, you have to get so many holes punched in your card in order for it to be valid, right?
You can like rank up, and she's the top rank. She's where these I feel like that's like top rank college softball.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a good
If you
one,
win
yeah.
I'm not
3
disagreeing with you at all.
win 3 college national softball championships. I feel like that's like
I mean, you're a badass either way.
you're a badass
Yeah.
either way, but I feel like that's like the peak lesbianism. And so like I've grown up around especially a lot of lesbians, and then my uncle on my mom's side is also gay. He's very like manly, like oil worker manly, and his boyfriend, now is probably like his civil union, whatever you want to call it, because they've been together since before you could actually do that legally. Is like truly the gayest person I've ever met in my whole life. Like he's awesome, and him and my dad are like very good friends. My dad and my
Uncle.
my uncle Jeremy, who has like Hello Kitty sleeve tattoos and is like a very gay gentleman. And so it's interesting because people like very conservative, like, but not in a religious way, like my parents are not ones to be like, that's wrong and this. Even like to a point where my cousin, whose parents are more shamefully conservative in a shameful way, called, like, if you met my dad, you would be like, oh, like, he's hilarious, this and that, but he's like, he's not somebody that somebody's going to call to come out of the closet. But like my cousin came out of the closet to my dad instead of like his family. And so it's a very weird dichotomy, I guess, of like,
They're conservative in a very strange way.
where it's like they have a lot of gay friends and that's not something that bothers them, where I think that kind of just tying it back into the transgender thing, where it's like now I imagine they would be like, oh, okay, that's definitely different, but I imagine in X amount of years when I guess that's more brought to the forefront as far as like homosexuality has been brought to the forefront. I
Also,
think it's just something that happens over time. Does that make sense?
your family knows how to party. That's another thing. Like, if you know how to party, like, eventually 2 beers in, you're like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Whereas,
It's a different story.
like, if you don't know how to party,
people like really uptight, like they
that sucks.
that's a different, And also, it's also when religion gets thrown into it in such an intense way, I feel like you oftentimes find a different group of people who the hatred is not just coming from, oh, these are my own thoughts, but they, for whatever reason, have decided that a higher power has okayed that type of
Yep.
hatred.
The Lord made trans people, so you better get on board.
Well, that almost kind of ties back into what you guys were talking about with Thailand, which I forgot to bring up earlier. But
oh, it is Thailand.
Thailand, but it's a Buddhist thing, which apparently in other countries, I think it's like Iran also maybe, that it's almost more acceptable to be transsexual rather than it is. Sorry, I'm gonna get some kind of feedback here. Than it is to be gay. Where in like Buddhism and other stuff like that, it's like transsexuality has existed for a long time, but so that's like in their thing. But homosexuality is not accepted. So a lot of people that are gay in other countries like Iran, like Thailand, will just go, oh well, I'll just be a trans person instead of
because that'll
just
be more accepted.
yeah.
Do they stay within kind of the binary of either woman or male identified, or
Yeah, I think
is
so.
there
I
more
think-
fluidity?
I think that's definitely in the binary, and I think that they don't. That's why, because they're like, men are this, women are this, and if you want to switch over to
Then
one or the
just
other,
do it.
go
But,
ahead.
yeah.
But don't
Interesting.
flip.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
But
Wow.
I think we are at about like an hour
And then
good-
some? Yeah.
for sure.
This
For
has
sure.
been so fun,
Really
so,
informative. Oh
yeah,
my God.
I mean, I
Yeah.
feel enlightened.
I
if
feel
you will.
better, honestly. I feel lighter as a person. Things have been lifted from my,
Yeah, thank you
my
so
heart.
much for
Yeah,
coming
thank
on
you.
the pod
Yeah.
and sharing your wisdom with us.
And being so open and honest about things, because it's really, that's why we wanted you on here, because
Yeah.
I think it is important for us to gain a different perspective, obviously, but it's important for people to understand that it's like, just because you don't understand something or haven't been educated on it doesn't mean that you can't be. And there's
Well, it's just so funny the way that you also respond to things where I'm like, Amazon's great, and you're like, but why do you need it right now? And I'm like, oh yeah, like I just think that you have this way of just like
well, yeah, because it's
reminding people, and
yeah.
educating people in a way that again is not condescending. It's just very like, well,
Why? But people
Yeah.
need to be questioned on what they think and what they say, and it's not demeaning. Critical thinking is something that pushes us all to be better. And so when you say something that you think is the way it is, it's important to have people in your life who will look at you and go, is it?
Yeah.
And then you go, oh no, it's not. You're right.
And I mean, definitely acknowledging that this is my perspective over what I've learned, and I everything evolves as we get more and more knowledge, and so I could be wrong. Like, who knows, in the future I may just be incredibly wrong. And so that's where like it's important to go to those online resources like PFLAG or that book that I talked about, ABCs of Gay, to just like get the information somehow. And I'm happy to always talk it through.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like our psych course freshman year where I sat literally in between your beds. And
She really did. And let me tell you, Kelly and I still barely. I think we both got C's.
I got C's.
I
Yeah,
got
I
C.
got C's in
I got C.
psychology.
Even
with your
but
help, which was
Mariah
phenomenal.
helped for sure, but holy shit, Kelly and I were sitting there going, we
I
are
was-
distracted by the two young gentlemen in front of us
Yeah,
who
God,
are
yeah,
good-looking.
we were.
Finally hooked up with one, junior year.
I remember that you were so proud.
I was so proud.
Not me though. Mine was never interested.
I'm sure you found somebody.
I found somebody.
All right. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you, Mariah, for joining us.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
of course.
Thanks for watching, listening. We will
Yeah.
see you next time on Just Talking.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That was such a wholesome ending.